Welcome to Dialogue. I'm Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University Stanislaus, and your host for this program. Dialogue features interviews with community leaders, elected officials, faculty, students, and friends of the university. Today I'm pleased to be joined by Dr. Gokce Soydemir, the inaugural Foster Farm Endowed Professor of Business Economics at California State University Stanislaus. Dr. Soydemir received his PhD in economics from Claremont Graduate School and holds a Master of Philosophy in International Finance from Glasgow University in Scotland. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Economics from Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. He has had numerous years of experience with central banking, constructing forecasting models, and large-scale macroeconomic studies. In addition, he has conducted independent policy research studies on monetary issues and economics. Most importantly, Dr. Soydemir plans to launch several key economic initiatives designed to better inform Central Valley businesses. And he's going to be our key master forecasters for Central Valley, right here from California State University Stanislaus. Gokce, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
Welcome to CSU Stanislaus.
It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, this was a dream of mine when I arrived, and I worked with Mr. Ron Foster, who is in our foundation board, and with the generous support of Ron and Foster Farm, we established this endowed professorship, and we wanted an internationally known scholar to come and take this chair and make the contributions which are necessary in this valley. And we are so fortunate to have been able to recruit you and to this post. And given your background and what you've done, I'm quite sure that you can hit the ground running. So tell us, Dr. Soydemir, a little bit about your background and your interest, and before we go to casting.
Sure. I have a bachelor's degree in economics, as you mentioned earlier, a Master of Philosophy in International Finance from the University of Glasgow, and a PhD in economics from Claremont Graduate School. Upon graduation, I worked for 13 years at the University of Texas Pan American as professor of finance, and have gotten tenure there, and have been working on regional economic forecasts for about 7 years over there. And this would be the background that I have. In terms of interest, I'm interested in conducting research in applied econometrics, international finance, international asset pricing, and regional economics.
You've also published extensively on the subject matter.
That's true. Discipline-based journals. I have a couple of publications that are also from related to the California economy as well.
Let's talk about the plans here in the next several months, because you've already apparently have started your forecasting models, applying it to Central Valley, and writing a report.
That's correct.
And that's going to be a biannual event.
Sure.
So would you tell our viewers about the what right now you're engaged in?
Well, we've done the draft. The first draft is complete. We're working on the final draft. The report will be out by the end of November. We're going to have a business luncheon, and at that luncheon, we're going to be distributing the report. Do you want me to talk about the what the forecasts say right now, or should we talk about that later on?
No, later on. That's
Okay.
we wanna keep everybody excited and waiting for that final numbers. But that for our viewers, they have to know that. So Dr. Soydemir is going to every 6 months is going to produce a report about Central Valley's business forecast, and then that would lead to a report, and of course, starting with a presentation, a luncheon presentation to business leaders, and of course, production of the report and distribution of the report at that time. And then, of course, every 6 months this is going to be repeated, and eventually these reports will be on our website.
There's going to be a web page that's created solely for this purpose,
Right.
and hopefully that's going to become a regional data center, and it'll be easier to access directly data regarding the economic indicators in the valley.
That's wonderful. So tell us, when this report, at least, how many sectors of economy you're going to forecast for us?
The report is comprised of 4 main sections. The first one being non-farm and farm-related employment indicators. Second one being housing and real estate. Third one, prices and inflation. And the last one being money and banking sector.
Many members of our community and business leaders that are really looking forward to your presentation. But instead of focusing on your presentation, which we want to keep everybody
Sure.
Excited about, and they have to really read the report, and then of course you're going to come back here and we're going to go through the first report. Then subsequently, in every time you make those presentations, we want to make sure our viewers that can attend the luncheon and so would hear from you. And of course, they can look at the report, review it on the website. But what do you think is happening at the nation? Let's just start reverse it. Instead of California, let's go macro. It seems to me, to non-economists, that we are really in a very locked up position. So, what's going on?
That's true. It's so hard to find good information these days. But if you were to look into the incoming data and were to do a year-to-year comparisons rather than month-to-month, you would see that there has been a gradual and steady improvement in the economic performance of the nation since the 2007-2009 recession. That's what the numbers tell.
But there were a couple of these organizations on Friday that they're predicting that there's going to be another recession. I'm sure you've heard about that. Is that?
Yes, there are some circles that give odds 1 to 3, right? Or a 50-50 chance of an economic recession hitting us again. However, the numbers that have been posting so far in terms of GDP growth rates, employment growth rates, etc., based on those numbers right now, since the 2007-2009 recession, there has been a steady but very gradual economic recovery. Now, what's going to happen into the future? There are several unpredicted events that have unfolded. One of them is the Greek debt crisis, as you all know. If the Greeks default, it's going to have ripple effects. It's going to have a chain reaction affecting Italy, Portugal, Spain, even France. And that's what the investors are afraid of. The debt problems of the developed nations are causing a lot of concern. However, today, for example, we read in the news that manufacturing data came in and it was better than expected. The leading indicators such as ISM new orders are also better than expected. So there's a lot of volatility going on, the mixed information coming in there. But international public institutions like International Monetary Fund, they are actually cutting growth forecasts, but they're not pointing to any recession. The same could be said with other agencies out there. They're cutting their growth forecasts globally. However, they're not pointing to a recession occurring in the near term.
Let me ask you this. That's, Greece. Repeatedly in different reports of our television, radio, as well as emails and different press, they're basically saying that there is no way for Greece to be able to pay back, and they're looking for 50 cents to a dollar with all the money that Germany recently put into. Who's gonna pay for that? Let's assume, let's say that's. I mean, is there any recourse?
Well, it's a catch-22 situation. I mean, the Germans are thinking, if we do not let Greece default, then we're gonna be preventing a catastrophic event, basically, and save the European Union. If we let it default, and then it's going to have a chain reaction, as I indicated earlier, that might have much greater consequences on the European Union's future than a scenario where Greece is allowed to pay back its debt. Now, the Greek government is taking very serious measures to pay back its debt. They've been delivering on their promises. However, since, as you mentioned, the magnitude of the debt is so huge, investors are reluctant to believe the government of Greece. Therefore, it is a dilemma. However, the current consensus in Europe is that we cannot let Greece default.
And isn't that because if the Greece defaults, the couple of other countries like Ireland and Spain will go,
Yes.
and Italy probably, and all there. And if the European Union dismantles, Germany will pull out, and then, basically the major impact is going to be on the United States, because they are buying a lot of goods and services from us, right?
Eventually, in the long run, that's true. Maybe the United States will be there to bail out a failed Europe. It might be true. That's definitely a possibility.
Let's come back home. I mean, right here in Central Valley. As I'm sure you've been here for a short time, but being an economist and also reading all the real facts and data and so forth. Let's first talk about somehow your forecast as opposed to all the other forecasts. I mean, there are some institutions in Central Valley that many of them do these forecasts and so forth. But what I have heard, that's the reason I wanted us to have get into the same services and functions, but produce something which is really valuable to the business community rather than just information. So how is our forecast is going to be different than his other forecasts, which I'm sure you've read?
Mm-hmm. I've seen in the past that forecast reports are based on a subjective assessment of the person presenting the report. The person is usually a bank representative, so it's not an objective party. Therefore, the assessment is bound to be somewhat biased. Ours, however, is numbers-driven. It is coming from an econometric model, statistics-based. It's using time series data to forecast future values of the key economic indicators. And it's done by a third party that has no interest anywhere, by any constituency. From that standpoint, therefore, the report provides a more objective assessment of the current economic trends and their projections into the future.
I'm a real estate agent.
Hmm.
I certainly would benefit by that, by reading your report and listening to you, won't I?
Definitely. There's a lot of confusion these days where these variables are headed. There's a lot of volatility. Nobody knows when there's going to be a turning point out there. Is it going to be in 2012, 2013? There's no market consensus. So the objective of the report is to clarify some of that confusion and give information about where these variables are headed, what they've done in the past, what are their long-term steady-state rates, equilibrium rates, and how the short-run incoming data is doing relative to that. And what do we expect? What do those numbers tell us, numbers-based forecasting into the future? And it's used as a decision-making tool, basically. You have your own subjective assessment of what's going to happen in the economy, and then you have these forecasting models that report, that project certain values into the future. And you look at those, you look at your own subjective assessment, and then you come up with a better informed decision as to what's happening in this region.
I see. So if I'm in dairy business, or if I'm a realtor, if I have a small tool manufacturing, no matter what I'm doing, I can somehow look at those numbers and extract some indicators for myself.
Absolutely. I mean, these are, when we prepared the report, we had the non-specialist in mind. That's why we're not actually crunching a bunch of numbers and reporting them. Instead, we're providing a visual plot. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So when you look at the time series graph of the variable and then its forecast, you're better able to understand what is happening in your sector relative to other parts of the economy.
Gokce, tell me about the stocks. It's just for the past 6-7 months is like a roller coaster, but and it's almost like going, the
Yes.
same level. I mean, it's not going up here and going down there. It's just like let's look at the S&P 500, which apparently is the best indicator. Between 1100 goes to 1300, comes back to 1100, goes to 13. It's just up and down. Maybe 1350. And how long this is going to continue? What do you think?
Well, investors are very jittery at the moment, and the stock market is basically reflecting that jittery sentiments. Very volatile. However, if you're into day-to-day trading, I'd suggest stay out of it and look at the long term. I mean, you invest your money and then stay there for the long term. If you take your money out and put it in, you're going to lose. There is a lot of volatility. Some investors are exploiting that volatility, engaging in short selling. There's some institutional trading going there quite a bit, in addition to individual trading. However, one piece of advice that I'd give is to stay away from day-to-day trading because of that you can't beat that volatility. But if you want to invest your money in the stock market and stay for the long term. The stock market in the past went down to almost 6,000 points. A lot of people moved out of the stock market, but if you stayed in, it would come back to about 12,000 points. So the answer to your question is, despite that volatility, if you stay in the market, and if you look at what's happened over a couple of decades, you'll see that it's actually increasing at a very flat but non-linear rate.
Slowly but surely going up. What about we have talked about that. What about real estate? Is there any hope?
Well, construction is the hardest hit sector. No doubt about that. Everybody is looking to see when there's going to be a turnaround, when are we going to hit a bottom. That hasn't happened yet. It's gotten hyperbolic, gotten flatter and flatter, but it has yet to hit a bottom. When is it going to hit? The consensus out there is that it's not going to hit anytime in 2012. Very likely it's deferred to 2013. So it's flat. It's not decreasing. It's not increasing. It's staying there, hyperbolic dynamic.
But it still has to go down.
Well, it's gone down as much as it could. It's going down, but the rate of decline is right now is not as great as it was in 2007, 2009. It's gotten down. The rate of decrease has declined. The rate of decrease is decreasing.
Gotcha.
It's becoming hyperbolic like that. So that's why everybody's looking. Is it going to hit a turning point, or is it going to stay there? Forecasts are indicating that it's going to stay there for a while,
right?
Stay flat
So
before it starts to improve.
Okay, so we have no clue about, at least not 2012, not 2013, for this to start moving.
2013, it looks like there's going to be a turning point. At least it's deferred to that year. Doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Got you.
Mm-hmm.
That's very. Let me ask you the last question. I thought our viewers would be interested to know. The dollar value is gone down, but I can see in the past several, at least 2 weeks, is coming up again. I mean, now at least euro, dollar to euro now is around 73, 74 cents. So that's not bad in comparison to it's gone to even 60 or something.
Well, yes, it's not bad if you don't go to Europe, right? If you go to Europe,
Sure.
You get hit by the low value of the dollar.
But one thing which I think a lot of people talk about it, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but they compare and say economy in the United States is so bad. Economy in Europe is bad too, but is still their euro has more value than our dollar. Of course, that depends to a variety of factors, right?
Yes, I mean, an average citizen wants to see a strong currency, wants to see his or her currency appreciating over time. However, that's not necessarily true. I mean, the U.S. economy is going through a structural adjustment. The dollar is following that behavior. Right now, the dollar, it has a tendency to depreciate further. And as a result of that, the current account is going to improve, which is to our advantage. Current account has suffered record-breaking deficits in the past, but it has done a U-turn, and it's been improving since maybe a year or two. What you want is a stable currency, but the investors right now are betting against the dollar. They're moving out of things like commodities, precious metals, and they're actually betting against the dollar and taking speculative positions like that, primarily because of the expansionary monetary policies that have been pursued, such as Phase 1 and Phase 2 of quantitative easing, and the Operation Twist that has been recently implemented. All of those are indicating that the dollar is due for further correction and realignment against the hard currencies in the world.
But wouldn't that eventually, gold for $1,800 an ounce, eventually has to come down. It's not going to stay.
That's very true.
Because it's a safety net.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the economy changes, people want to jump back into stock market and other investments. So that pushes the dollar up.
That's correct. We began seeing some of that dynamics already. Gold has lost some of its value in the past. And now investors are moving into other tools like long-term government bonds, 20-year government bonds, and the dollar losing it, betting against the dollar basically. And that's where they think they're going to make their money.
Got you. Well, Gokce, one last question. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Your family. You moved down here with your family. tell our viewers about them?
Sure. We're very excited to be back in California. I've actually, as I said before, I've done my PhD in Claremont, which is in the Los Angeles area. California is a great state, great weather. I have moved here with my son, our child, 7-year-old child Emre, and my wife Yasemin. We are in the process of settling in. It takes a while.
Absolutely.
It takes about 6 months to a year to get fully settled. But we're really enjoying Turlock. I think Turlock is a very well-kept city, very orderly, great schools, great public parks. We find ourselves actually going out to one of those parks every weekend and enjoying quite a bit of the weather. So we're very, very excited and pleased to be here. Yeah.
Well, we're delighted to have you, and we're very much appreciated. You're going to be one of those kind of continuous guests in our program.
Always. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Dr. Soydemir. It's we really enjoyed your insight, learned a lot. This has been Dialogue. I'm Hamid Shirvani, President of California State University Stanislaus. My guest today has been Professor Gokce Soydemir. Please tune in next time when I will welcome another guest positively influencing our region and community. Thank you for watching.